Hey, what's up, social media family? It's Chris, your favorite host. Maybe I'm not your favorite, but if you don't have a favorite, why not let it be me? All things favorite. So I'm here today with Josh Cadillac, associate broker, trainer extraordinaire, amongst other things. And he's got some wonderful things to share with you. We had a great conversation the other day. And I think this idea of the new standard of real estate is really kind of an underlying tone in everything that you do.
I try to make it so. that's the general idea. We hope
Yeah.
is actually maybe to make agents do something that nobody ever really tells them to do, which is to consider the standards by which they're doing the business
Yeah.
that they're in. It's just not part of mainstream real estate conversation even.
Stuff you don't learn in licensing school, right?
Oh, forget licensing. Not even in the extra classes that you can take, the CE class you can take all over the place. There's just not a ton of content out there sitting there saying, hey, look, you run this business. How are you going to run this business? What kind of product are you going to put out?
That's right. I mean, so tell us a little bit about your background. I mean, you have a long history, and you arrived at this point somehow. I mean, you've had quite the journey, going even pre bubble and all that stuff. So tell us about you.
So basically, what brain damage went into making the special kind of brain damage that you see on display before you right now? Sure. So I grew up, actually, I guess one of the most interesting things, I suppose, was my father was born in 1930, and he was a big believer in you need to learn to work hard, otherwise you're going to turn out to be a spoiled little punk and blow everything that I built. So what he did was, when I finished fourth grade, he took me out of school, hired a professional teacher to teach me in the afternoons. And from the time I was 9 years old until, well, I'm still working to this day, I started working. And so from 6 in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to work every single day. With a little school cafeteria operation that we had, and I had to work. And I took down a little paycheck and whatever else, and that was it. And so that's where I started. My father had that little operation, as well as a whole lot of real estate in New York City and in Red Hook, Brooklyn, that he had amassed over the years in his huge industrial operation. So I got to see him handling that. I got to work with him on a lot of the investment stuff that we did in real estate down here. And so I had worked in real estate as a landlord, maybe some on acquisitions. And then my father passed away, and I kind of took over. And so fast forward, we got rid of the rest of the portfolio in New York, got some great assets down here in Florida, got long in office, got long in multi-bay warehouse. And then 2008 happened. Oh, I forgot to mention, I took a foray into owning a couple of Italian restaurants, because I'm Italian and I love to eat and I love food. And where we had great people to do it, circa 2007. And so we're opening our restaurants coming right into the housing crisis. And with the incredible liquidity crash, our restaurants absolutely went from doing great to tanking overnight. And with it, it took, basically everything went with them. The real estate portfolio, and I had to start all over again. And what did I know? I knew real estate. So I got into real estate no longer as just an investor. I mean, I had basically, when I say I'm starting from scratch, Chris, I had to start, lost even my family, lost everything, family, home, everything. I had to start all over again. And built back the portfolio, built it back bigger and stronger than ever. Acquired a ton of assets, pretty much constantly acquiring assets whenever we can.
So so that was, you had an investment background, then kind of getting back into it after you lost everything. That's when you tried your hand at brokerage.
As an agent, absolutely. What gets people into real estate? Typically, desperation, right? And so I got into real estate saying, hey, what the heck do I know how to do? I know real estate, so let me do this.
Yeah, real estate. I guess getting into sales and wanting to kind of share that with other people was just secondhand to that, of course, because it's something that you did for yourself and you wanted to share with other people. And then you did real estate sales. Clearly, you were good at it. At the same time, you were investing. And at what point did you start getting into teaching and coaching and speaking and all that?
Well, one of the things that was always a concern for me was I hate to be the fake it till you make it guy.
Yeah.
And so I knew that with everything they had given me with licensure class, that it had thoroughly made me totally unprepared to actually do the business of real estate. And so I realized I needed to supplement it. So I took, Chris, if it wasn't nailed down, I took the class. I mean, every real estate designation, name brand, you name. I did CCIM, GRI, CRA. I did them all. I have them all, right?
Yeah.
I
So you
would
have
do
all the
all
things.
the things.
I know you have. There's no room. There's actually no room on your business card for any more letters, I think.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't even put them all on there because I mean, to me, honestly, there's only a couple of them that mean anything. Everything else is just kind of you showed up, you had a pulse, you paid the fee, you got the class, right?
Yeah.
And so, what the issue wound up being was I would go to my local board, Miami Realtors, and I'd say, guys, the class was good, but they don't talk about this, 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 and this, and they say eventually, and it's not that they even got frustrated. They're like, you should do a class. If you do a class, if you write a class, we'll let you put it on. So
Yeah.
I did. I put my head down. I wrote a two-day class, right?
That's
and
great.
They wouldn't talk to me. And so I wound up spending about a year and a half or so, and eventually somebody let me put it on in Pensacola, which, if you know Florida, I'm in Southeast Florida. It's the opposite end,
Sure.
as physically far away as it could be. They took a flyer on me and they let me do the class. I do the class. Fast forward, they've had me come back and do that class every year, the same time of year, every year, because it was such a magical event, right? But from that, it went from that one event to like 6 the next year to, well, I mean, this year, several years later, I think I'll be speaking about 200 days this year.
Well, it's a lot, man. It's a lot of time on the road. I know. I share that pain and that joy. So tell us about that first class. So what was the first class that did it where you kind of saw the void? And I think a lot of what we put together is where we see gaps, where we see voids, where there's a need. There's a need for something. I mean, I got into real estate sales. There was definitely a need for real estate salespeople that had integrity, were focused on customer service, were not just so with the commission breath looking at the payday. And I did that. And then, becoming a trainer and an instructor is kind of like the same thing. Well, wait a second, becoming a broker. Wait a second. What if we had an office that did this? So it sounds like you said, why don't they have classes on this? And they were like, go ahead, Josh, write it and we'll do it.
And so I think it was really kind of my attempt at a catch-all because I mean, like between you, me, and the lamppost, Chris, the reason why I didn't like school was not that I wasn't good at it. I hated writing the papers. And so now I have to write a textbook that I have to send to the state to go get approved. And so I said, you know what? Let me make my magnum opus. Let me write the one class to rule them all, right? The one that's going to have everything that's missing to take you from zero to hero. So it's got, everything from just understanding contracts to what your email signature looks like, branding, investment, distressed assets, negotiation. It's all in segments in there broken up to say, hey, look, this is all the stuff they didn't tell you, right? I thought that was going to be it. Now I'm at like 38 CE classes that I've written at this point. Typically, I'm writing stuff that's closer to 4 hours now because that seems to be the sweet spot.
Yeah, that half day stuff, right? 3.75 hours.
Yep. And so, a lot of it is just taking a lot of those components that were in that original class and expounding on them because, I mean, especially investment stuff, I've got at this point 7 4-hour classes on investment real estate. And I'm sure there's a lot more that I could probably do on it, but I mean, I just got done before hanging out with you right now. I've been teaching it since 8 in the morning till just a few minutes ago on that very topic, Ace Investor 5 and 6, on understanding the investor. Because again, I'll tell you, CCIM, great stuff. They don't touch on the investor customer, what that conversation needs to sound like. So what does the custom conversation typically sound like? Oh, so how much do you want to spend? Where do you want to be? What kind of folks? When I hear agents lead off just bombarding with questions, I want to puke. Because here's the thing. What have you done to deserve one iota of truth from that customer?
Sure.
Who do they think you are? They think you're the used car salesman. Do you tell the used car salesman the truthful answer? They come up and they're like, how much money you got to spend? Do you tell them the truth? You don't tell them the truth because you don't trust them as far as you can throw them. That whole buyers are liars thing, it's only true because we haven't done enough missionary work up front to be worthy of the truth. And so that's like one of the concepts that I just don't see us in real estate teach. Real estate is more so kind of this, let's make a friend, let's interrogate, let's ask a bunch of, and God help us, when we don't know the answer, what do? We ask another question.
Yep. Yeah, it's I think and you and I share this, and that's when we were having the conversation. It was like I get goosebumps when I hear about this stuff about the customer experience, and I know you're real big on negotiations and how important that is. And ultimately, it's to get people to know, like, and trust you. That way, you're in the position where you can educate them and consult them, help them make a holistic, proper decision on their own. And that really comes down to customer service and experience. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, what happened in your world that made you say, I need to deliver a high level customer experience? Was it like a pivotal moment? Was it an epiphany, or was it like gradually just you kind of seeing that a need that needed to be filled?
I think, as you know, I'm the guy that teaches, the competitive negotiating tactics and all this stuff. So people think I'm like this super hardcore guys. It starts with empathy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that I hate dealing with bad agents,
Yeah.
and I know that unfortunately I deal with them a lot of times, and I don't want to give somebody else that experience. I've had to work with bad agents. I've heard customers complain about bad agents. I don't want to give them that experience. I have the choice, Timex or Rolex. I can be because I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to ask my broker to put out a better quality product. That's up to me.
Yeah.
It's the choice. I make the choice what time I get out of bed. I make the choice whether or not I make the phone calls to follow up with everybody. I make the choice as to whether I double and triple check my contracts, double and triple check my numbers. I'm the one that does that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I recognize that I wanted to be considered a quality product.
Yeah.
I wanted to be considered the elite. And so what did I need to do that? What were the choices and the sacrifices that need to be made? And that's what built the standards that I built my business on.
So at what point, so I mean, I love that analogy, Timex or Rolex. I always say, I'm like, hey, you could be Ritz-Carlton or Holiday Inn. They're both good hotels, clearly different. I mean, that's something I decided later on for sure. At what point in your career did you decide that you wanted to be Rolex?
I think it was early on. I mean, my father was always the guy that, like, if you're going to buy a chainsaw, who makes the best chainsaw in the world? And if we need one that can do 8, let's buy the one that can do 12, because you know what? If we only ever needed to do 8, it's never going to be struggling to do 8 if it gets designed to do 12. So I had these chainsaws at the house after we had the first hurricane down here in Florida that were like, only people in the black woods of Germany buy these things. They're for like cutting down sequoias, right? But I was always brought up to think it was worth it to buy the best. So my father he bought always Heister forklifts because those were the best forklifts that you could buy in the day. He always bought Cadillacs because that was the best car America made. Like, he always bought the best.
Keeping it in the family.
And well, I mean, the name came from the car, not the other way around. So
no, of course, yeah. I clearly like Cadillacs. I mean, your family liked them, right? So buy the best. Because a friend of mine, a colleague, actually my partner in Sky Limitless, he always says, Chris, there's 3 things: good, fast, and cheap. You only get to pick 2 of those things.
Yep.
And quite often when you want good and you want fast, it's not going to be cheap. And there's so many experiences I've had. Even my sister, I hate cruises. I'll never go on a cruise again. Why not? Oh, because the cruise stunk. And I'm like, you went on a cruise line I told you not to go on because you said the one I recommended was 3 times as much. That's what happens. That's the difference. And she just went to a wedding and she was like, oh, that was the best food I ever had at an all-inclusive resort. And I'm like, because you always look for the cheapest thing. And I think some of us are conditioned where I came from a world of look for the deal. And it wasn't until I was older that I said, you know what? I want to stay at a Ritz-Carlton because I like having a chocolate mint in my pillow. You know, I like it when they give me a mimosa and walk me around the place. And when I show up and they let me take out cars for free and they keep the restaurant open longer for me. I enjoy that stuff. I like Holiday Inn too, but that's cool that you had that experience passed down through your father. And I mean, I think Power Tools is like, that's such a great way to say it. The best chainsaw, because I mean, even when I was buying a screw gun, I was like, no, I'm getting a DeWalt, So
yeah.
I'm getting
That's
something
what
good because
I
I know I'm
buy.
just going to be back here getting it again. And I think, real estate. How often do you work with a lot of expired sellers? I mean, I can imagine you get the expired sellers that had that kind of discount broker, and I mean, so often if you lose a listing over commission, sometimes they'll be back to you again. So I was just curious: do you work with a lot of expired sellers, people that had a bad customer service experience?
I definitely have the customers that come back to me. You can call them expired. They were expireds. I've had several of those. Um, I'm at the place in my business now where 100% of my business comes from past business, and so I don't have the experience. I can't say to you like it was
Yeah.
yesterday. I had an expired come in because it's again not something I actively have to look for anymore. I actually find myself turning business away and having to partner it out and find some way to cobble it together because I've tried to build this this horde, this group of customers that would never do business with anybody but me.
Mm.
Uh, but I think, and if I could give maybe the listeners a piece, this is one from one of the classes that
Yeah.
I did, but how to handle that negotiation conversation. To me, and I can't even do it over Zoom because there's such a body language component to how you have to really handle this well as far as a negotiation goes. But typically, if the customer asks me to cut commission the first time, now understand when we're talking about commission, it's almost always at the very end of my listing presentation because I've already gone through I've told them how the market, I have built so much credibility with these people because I show them I know the market like nobody they've talked to before, right? And now we're getting to the end of the thing, and they ask me to cut as I'm going through the listing agreement. I always do the exact same thing. I look up like surprised and then act like, oh man, I realize you're joking, and I start laughing hysterically. I just start laughing. And then I proceed to go on like they didn't even ask.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to ask me to cut, you got to ask twice. The first one doesn't even count.
Yeah, that's great.
And then if they ask again, this is the big move. You take the pen you're working with, you put it down, you slide the chair back a little bit. You lean back. I've been leaning forward the whole time. I'm leaning back now. Why? I need them to experience a sense of loss. They've got to feel like, you know what? I just offended this guy. He's going to leave. And I'm now thinking about how much better he was than the 10 other people, because I know I'm going to be better, because that's what I eat, live, breathe, and sleep. I know the market, and nobody's going to know it better than me, and nobody's going to sell it for a nickel more than me. I need to know that on the way in the door before I go in, because that's got to ooze out of every pore of my being. It's not an arrogance thing. It's a fact that I know how little commitment my competitors have to what I do and how much I do. I need to be Rolex, which means I need to make that choice every single day. So I sit there and I say to them, you know what, folks? I'm fortunate. I'm blessed enough that I don't have to do everything. I know I'm not a fit for everybody, so I get it. But what I can do is I can give you a little bit of advice. I can give you a little bit of advice because I own real estate all over the U.S. And that means that sometimes I have to work with agents too. And so I'm in the position, I'm in your side of the table. I can interview them. And there's one thing, there's one litmus test that immediately eliminates any agent from contention in my world, which is any agent that cuts commission simply because I asked them to has immediately eliminated themselves from any kind of contention as to whether or not they can represent me. Because at the end of the day, they have just demonstrated for me, one, how much they value what they bring to the table, and two, how they're going to negotiate for me. If this is how they represent their money. So, folks, the reason why I couldn't even entertain what you're asking me to do is because if I was sitting here giving you advice, I would say the second I agree, you should immediately kick me out of the door. It's the one thing I could do that would immediately eliminate me from being anybody to be taken seriously. Then I immediately pick the pen back up and I go back in and act like they didn't even say anything. And continue with my listing presentation. 99 times out of 100, your paperwork gets signed there.
Yeah.
Because you paint all this nonsense of, well, let me tell you how I split my money with my broker. And the open heart surgeon doesn't justify to the customer why they should get paid.
Yeah. It's when the focus is on paying less and not making more and better service. It's always shifting that conversation. I find so many real estate agents that I work with anyway, they start getting into the commission conversation. If somebody asks, sometimes it's just a question, how much do you charge? I say how much you charge, and you answer the question and move on. Yeah. Don't get into this whole song and dance about it, but don't confuse a question with an objection, because quite often it's not. I mean, I found when I was in sales, a lot of times I don't even talk about the commission until we're filling out the paperwork. It's when they're signing it, and I just point at it. I'm like, yep, this we're going to ask you price. This is how many days. This is the length of our contract. This is the commission. Boom, boom, boom. And they're just like, okay, and that's that's such an interesting thing. That's like as a coach now, I come back, people like, wow, you're more expensive than Tom Ferry. I'm like, I'm sorry, is Tom coaching you directly? I'm not sure, because you're working with me. I only got so many slots on my calendar. Oh, that makes sense. I'm like, well,
Yeah. No,
go like your Timex.
it's interesting that you say that, Chris, because it's so true, right? You have this limited amount of bandwidth that you have to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And folks, this is the one that I hear all the time from my new agents. When I have new agents, they get asked, they're always worried about, well, how long have you been doing this? That they're worried about that objection, right? Let me ask you a question, Chris. When was the last time a customer asked you how long you've been doing real estate? I mean, it's never part of the interview process. Yeah. Why? Because there's just a way that we conduct ourselves that nobody asks the question anymore. If you're getting the commission question, I'm going to tell you that it's probably a lack of establishing credibility up front that makes them feel like they can ask for a discount. I find the best type of negotiation for me is to negotiate things before the negotiation even starts.
Right.
So I'm going to pre-negotiate commission by establishing so much credibility that you don't feel like you have any shot in hell to ask me to cut, and you're just grateful I'm doing it for what I'm doing it for.
Yeah.
And
it's true. It's when that goes back to what you were saying earlier about nobody talks about the market the way you do. Do you think for newer people or people that are getting asked how long they've been in the business or that might appear a little greener, do you think getting to know that market
it's a game
like
changer.
Extremely well and being able to articulate that to potential clients, customers, to their sphere of influence, do you think that would kind of overcome, even kind of thwart the objection of how long have you been in a business or anything like that?
I think the question doesn't even come up, because the number one question agents get asked is not how long you've been done in the business. That's actually a follow-up question. Mm-hmm. The number one question they get is, how's the market?
Yeah, that's true.
And so answering that question, so like me, I'm in Southeast Florida, right? We just had a little bit ago, a couple of years ago, and the law is really coming into place now because of the Champlain Towers coming down. Mm. We have a law that changed the ability of condos. Condos are no longer allowed to waive their reserves, which means that now the association fees in all these condos are going way up. Now, all agents know this, but they haven't turned it into a customer recommendation. What do I mean? I mean that I fully anticipate that condo is going to underperform the rest of the real estate market right now because condo is experiencing this other outside economic force that's applying a downward pressure on the price of condos. It's sitting here making it more. Condos were selling where they were selling before without this pressure. This pressure has come in. It puts a downward pressure on condo prices, right? Plain and simple. I expect condos to underperform the rest of the market that is not experiencing that pricing pressure in the short term. What's the main reason why most people can't get low down payment financing on a condo? Because they don't have reserves. Sure. Now these condos are going to be mandated to have reserves. I fully anticipate that many of these buildings now that you needed 25 and 30% to buy, you'll be able to get in with 3 and 5% down. What does that do to the buyer pool long term? It expands the buyer pool. So short term, I don't like condo. Long term, I do. That conversation right there never happens.
Yep. And that how's the market question, man, that is such a can of worms. I mean, because I think, you've been in the business long enough probably to hear the nonsense that I was taught early in my career of, it's always a good time to buy or sell real estate, which isn't true. And I think it's really kind of asking questions. And again, you said earlier, when you don't understand, ask more questions, ask follow-up questions. It depends on who's asking, who's doing the asking. I mean, when people were losing their houses in 2008, I mean, look, there were millionaires that were made that got great deals on houses, were buying houses for pennies on the dollar. But then there were people that were putting very low down payments, which still was their life savings, kind of trying to pay these expensive mortgages just to keep these houses, and lost their houses. So there's people that down here in Florida, I think it was crazy up in New York, and down here in Florida, it was nuts because of the how inexpensive real estate was, and it blew up and went there. So but that's a huge thing. So is that what you're teaching now? You're getting on the road. You're teaching a lot. Are you teaching agents how to kind of dig deeper, ask these questions, be able to interpret the market for particular clients?
Well, I try to be counter a lot. And so there's this big push to ask questions. I teach agents actually to ask the questions later and make assumptions up front.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by making assumptions is I assume there's certain things based upon how is the market. I assume that I can have a very good long conversation with them about how that market is. I'm going to assume what they don't know
Mm-hmm.
and start to really hit them with my big guns of how the market is. And that's going to build me the credibility I need and a little bit of the trust that I need to now, when I start to ask those questions that you're talking about, to get to what I need to know. And what I need to know is, hey, look, what is it you're really looking to do? How much money are you really looking to spend?
Mm-hmm.
What's the budget? Look, you tell me 650, but you don't want to spend more than 500. I'm going to look to get you 485 and get you exactly what you want. I want to outperform what you're asking me to do, because I understand if I save you 15,000, I get you what you want for 15,000 less than you think. That's 15,000 I just spent toward my fund of having you come back over and over and over again, right? That's a win for me. And so I think that's maybe kind of how I stand it on its head, because you're right. You've got to ask the great questions.
Yeah.
But for me, I have to establish that I'm worthy of the answers
Okay.
to start to ask those questions.
I love that. Your answers mean nothing unless you have the credibility.
Exactly. Unless I come off when I walk in the door, Chris. This is the thing. I know that the customer thinks a real estate agent is lazy, not very smart, overpaid, and all they care about is their commission. That's the negotiation I walk into. Until I have dispelled that I am not those four things, there's no reason for them to give me a factual answer, because they're always concerned that whatever answer they give, I may be using against them as opposed to help them. And until I've done the missionary work to fix that problem, I don't feel like, and I know it's true. I mean, it's squeezed out so many problems from so many of the objections that I used to hear, they're just gone. Because now I come in and I explain the market to them in a way they have never heard it before. The history of when the market's been like this before, how it's changed, all this stuff. I'll do that, and then I'll come in and say, so what are you guys looking to do? Okay. And they start to not just answer the question, but they give me the full narrative tale of, why and all the stuff that I really need to know to sit here and say, well, guys, I know you're asking for a single family, but if you're on the road that much, maybe you want a townhouse where somebody else takes care of I don't know. I can bring some ideas to the table,
That's excellent. This keeps coming up in our conversation, like kind of like the theme of preventative measures. Like the objections are never coming up, the questions are never coming up. Nobody's questioning your credibility. You're doing so much up front. I have a class called the 15-minute listing presentation. Everyone's like, you can't do a listing presentation in 15 minutes. That class is really about putting a pre-listing package together, like making your pre-listing so on point. You get them everything. You follow the system. That way, when you show up, you're saying, did you get that? Do you have any questions? Let's talk about price and terms and fill out the paperwork. That's it, right? So it sounds like you've got a lot of systems in place, leading up to your meetings with potential clients and everything like that. So is it a well-oiled machine now that you're able to be on the road 200 days a year, and on top of that, still run these businesses successfully?
Yeah, I would say so, because it's not a lot of pre-work that I'm doing. I've done the pre-work in the past, and now I'm just taking and maintaining, which is this. I mean, how many markets are we that we're talking about? We're talking about the real estate market. There's one of them. Okay, I mean, we could talk about office, or we could talk about different components, but it's one market. So if I formulate a good quality market conversation, and then I just continue to polish it by paying a little bit of attention to the news and just keep it up to date, I am always prepared to be in a conversation that can establish me as a real estate market expert. As long as I'm in that position, I'm going to sound different than the vast majority of agents who are out there who are masters of TikTok. Oh man, do they know Instagram? Because I got to tell you, Chris, I just got done doing a major state convention. I did the math. For every one class there was on substance, there were 15 classes on some version of marketing.
Yeah.
Social media, whatever. Guys, stop marketing so much. Keep more of the people that you already have. We have a 12% customer retention rate nationwide. That sucks. And so, it's simple to me, Chris, which is this. I recognized early on I'm the CEO of my business, right? Which means that if anything is coming up repeatedly, any objection, that's my problem to solve. I got to ask, not how do I overcome that objection? maybe the question to ask is, why is that objection even coming up in the first place? Maybe there's a way, because this is what my daddy taught me about doing business. Hey, why is this problem getting here? Is there something we could do over here to make sure this problem never gets down here?
Mm-hmm.
My father used to run assembly lines in his plants. If we had a problem that got here, he didn't take and try to figure out how to fix the problem here. He figured out how the problem got here on the assembly line in the first place. And so that's what I'm always looking to do, is to take and see how far back we can trace the root of where that objection comes from, and see if we can't cut it off at the pass and make it not an issue going forward. I mean, even talking about price in a listing presentation, I was taught when I took CRS, and CRS, those guys are smart at CRS, right?
Yeah.
The guys at CRS said, you don't call them active listings, you call them competition. And I was like, that makes sense. They are my I need to get my customer thinking, hey, these are our competitors on market. We need to be thinking, because that's going to take and help their price come from fantasy land down to, hey, look, we at least have to be competitive with these guys, right? I don't call them competition anymore. Because
so you call them, rather than call them, here's the active listings. When you're going over your market analysis, you say, hey, here's the competition.
I used to. Now I don't even do that anymore.
So what do you call them?
Because I used to, what are you told to do? You bring the expireds with you, because the expireds show them what things won't sell for, right? I don't need the expireds. I have the actives to show them that. The actives are available, but unsold at the current price.
They're not sold yet.
Yeah.
Here's the unsold properties.
You want to see what people won't pay for real estate? Here's what people won't pay for real estate, because everybody in the world could access this and nobody has agreed to pay this. Simple. And that takes, and it pairs that, because what I'm always trying to do with my listing presentation is keep the noise down to a minimum, which means I go in there with the bare minimum of data to take and establish the factual points I need them to see, which is, where is the price point the market will accept, and where is the price point it will not? What is the length of time it's going to take to get us to achieve that? And then based upon that, you've got a force to be reckoned with me. How do you want to turn me loose to get you what you want? And if I do that well, almost, I think it's 97-ish% of the time I come out with my listing paperwork signed at this point.
Perfect. That's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty good ratios. I know you have one book out and another one on the cooker, right?
I have two out.
So tell us about those and where people can go to kind of grab them and connect with you, and what they're about.
Sure. So the first one I wrote, kind of a labor of love, because I realized that you can't really get investment knowledge in mainstream education. And so you have Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these books that conceptually give you the idea of you need to invest, but then after that they kind of leave you high and dry on how to do. And so I wrote a book called The Roadmap, The American Dream, which kind of builds on that idea of, hey, look, you need to invest, but here's the math. Here's how to actually do the numbers to figure out whether or not something is a good investment. And so that was what that book was about. Kind of try to write it at a level for kids, like an 8th grade level, because it was about the last time I remember them teaching me anything useful about how money works in school. Like, hey, here's how you balance a checkbook. And then the most recent one that I just finished a few months ago from McGraw-Hill was Close for Life, which is a book kind of about the concepts that we're talking about a little bit, about how to build a herd, just this group of people that are super loyal to you. I mean, when anybody says real estate, the other ones say, whoa, you said real estate? You got to call, and it's your name. As a real estate agent, folks, as the CEO of your real estate business, the number one question you got to ask yourself is, why is every customer you've ever worked with not saying about you, hey, real estate, I got a guy, you got to use my person.
That's so you got one for people that are interested in building wealth through real estate, right? And that's and then you got one for real estate agents, or
Actually, when I was talking with McGraw, I asked him, do you want me to do one for sales in general? Because it's really the same stuff for sales.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, just the substance changes a little bit, but the mechanics are the same. I find the best things that I've learned, even for my real estate business or otherwise, were kind of general that you can apply everywhere, and people don't consider that. But I got a couple of long links here from Amazon where people can go and connect with your books. I know the one book you can, the American Dream, Roadmap to the American Dream. It looks like it's you can get it on Kindle for free.
It's very possible.
You're giving it away.
Everyone knows what they do,
Nice. Well, that's awesome. So, is there anything else you wanted to share with everybody? You got to get to the airport, man. This is one of the 200 out of 365 days we'll be on the road this year. So that's pretty cool. What do you want to share, and where are you going?
I'm going right now to Nebraska. There's the state convention. I'm going to be speaking there all day tomorrow.
Oh, nice, nice. That's a place I've never been, man. Enjoy, have a good time.
Oh, I've been
Um,
all across Nebraska. I've gone from one side to there's a lot of nothing in the middle.
I think
Just
Elise is based out of Nebraska, isn't she?
she is. She's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's right, right. Yeah, that's good. So I guess are you gonna connect with Lisa when you're over there?
Supposed to actually. She just let me know that that's a thing and it's going to happen. So I'm going to
Good deal, man. Tell her I said hello, and I'm sure our paths will cross and we're in the same state. But any parting words for everybody? Something that you really want to share?
Yeah, I would say if there's one thing I can encourage you to do, just stop buying into the idea of chasing paychecks, guys. No more Tinder real estate. Stop just hooking up with a customer long enough to get a commission out of them and never calling them again the next day. The reality of it is, I think in general, you want something better than that. You want to be known for a business better than that. And don't get fooled by anybody else that tells you anything less. Because at the end of the day, this is your life and this is your business. Do something better, something you can be proud of. You can look back and say, you know what, I did it better than everybody else was doing it. And I stuck to my guns and did it that way.
That's perfect. I love that. So stop chasing the paycheck. I think that's kind of applicable for everybody. I don't think it takes us back to when we're kids. Nobody wants to do what they want to do because they're thinking about chasing a paycheck. That's something that kind of we learn along the way, I think. So be better, be bigger. We had that eulogy conversation too. That's always a good one. Just kind of if you do a great, what would you like your customers, people you leave behind, everybody to say about you if you were a fly on the wall listening? And it's it's never, man, that guy was really good at getting money quickly. So that's awesome. So thank you so much. Is there any other links or anything that I could share with people to find you? Or I mean, we got your podcast, the Know Your Shit podcast. That's wonderful. And you're kind of, even though you're not a big social media guy, you are accessible on social media. You are out there. So
we're posting all the time. I got people that take and work on chopping the stuff up to try to give people the best pieces of the stuff that I do, because I'm not good at picking it out. But they listen to all the stuff that I do. They record it all. They put the pieces out there. And so the stuff on social, I'm always surprised. Like, wow, I said that. That actually made a little sense. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I posted something yesterday or today from our thing that you shared over that. And now the software has gotten, we've got this AI software that's like having a really smart assistant that kind of picks the stuff out for you. And I'm like you, I'm bad at picking that stuff out too. And I just have to have another set of eyes to look at it and say, hey, this is good. People need to hear this. This is valuable. So. But thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing with us today. And we got to do something live. We got to get in the same room, man, here in South Florida.
Let's make it happen.
And we'll do something. All right. Peace out, everybody. Thank you, Josh. Have a safe flight, my man. Enjoy.
Take care, Chris. Thank you.